9/11. Let's just get that out of the way with. It happened. I can't make jokes about it even now, can I? Even 20 years later. So what about games though? Can we just use them to ignore the horrors of that? Yes, let's. It was a bumper year for games too. One of those years where you go, wow, that came out that year too? But before we stick our head in the video gaming trough of overflowing wonder, let's rub ourselves all over 2001 and its news stories that didn't involve 9/11. iTunes and iPods were launched, the start of Apple's insidious takeover of your devices and the software that made MP3s the most dominant musical purchase of choice for all the world's whippersnappers. One person who you could eventually download MP3s of is sad-eyed grump Billie Eilish. Not in 2001 though, as she had just manoeuvred her way out of her mother's birth canal, slopping out 7 days before Christmas of that year. Happy birthday, Billy, for like December. George W. Bush was sworn in as US President, and everyone laughed at him because he wasn't massively smart and he was possibly a bit of a decisively dangerous dickhead. Oh, how quaint. In video games, Bill Gates and his chief hardware engineer, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, introduced the world to the first ever Microsoft console, the Xbox. Yes, the Xbox. Such a simple name. Thankfully, they would just stick a sequence number on the end of each subsequent console, or it would have got really confusing, wouldn't it? Oh, they didn't do that, did they? Nintendo finally released a proper sequel to the original, over a decade-old Game Boy handheld with the Game Boy Advance. A brilliant little unit, retro console which is fast becoming my absolute favourite. The GBA was a Super Nintendo in your pocket, and boy was that a wonderful thing indeed. Its initial release with its non-backlit screen was a bit of an inauspicious start for the beast, from a hardware point of view anyway, but once the SP came out, the Game Boy Advance would become a little wonder that sits next to your groin. It was a busy year for Nintendo hardware too, because the other thing they released was their next generation console. It was the GameCube, of course, a little pretty handbag that, it was a decent little machine. I think we all can agree on that. A bit of a step up from the ugly old N64. The GameCube, while not as powerful as the PS2 or the Xbox, certainly held its own in terms of looks. Sadly though, Sega had just about had enough of making consoles and announced that the soon-to-be discontinued Dreamcast would be their last effort. In retrospect, while sad, you can now play Sega games on all the modern consoles, which is great. Despite not having to worry about being busy manufacturing consoles or come out with new ideas, they still haven't got their head around the fact that no one likes playing Alter Beast on any of their Mega Drive collections. Could you just get rid of Alter Beast? Just stop it, Sega. As I display footage of important games of the year that didn't make my list, allow me to explain the rules as in previous entries. The games featured are here on the basis of when they were originally released, on one of the original formats they were released upon. The only exception to this rule is if the game is sufficiently different in its conversion, such as Bionic Commando or Double Dragon on the NES, or Turtles 4 on the Mega Drive compared to the Super Nintendo one, say. I might not have played some of the games playing on screen at the moment, which is why they probably missed out on the top 10 list that I've made, and I may have played some of them a lot later than their original release. They're all crackers though, you should try them. One to appeal to the puerile amongst you, this. Oh, that's all of you and me. Meta-adult take on the 3D platform genre that can only have happened right at the end of a console's lifespan. A console, to be fair, that got the platform genre in 3D right first time. Rare paired their previous experience in the genre, their expertise if you will, with an absolute disregard for Nintendo's usual standards of familial decency, and they got it an M rating packed full of cutesy creature cussing, boozing and letting their fluids run free and loose all over the place. The belligerent squirrel's quest for cash isn't just a crass finger up your bum either. It's a brilliantly playable video game too, one that just so happens to have a musical number performed by a pile of turds.
Me, me, me. I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you.
Much like the PS2 in 2000, the GameCube launch was high on titles but less than stellar in quality. OK, Monkey Ball and Luigi's Mansion were very, very good titles, but it was up to a bit of help from George Lucas to bring the whole wow factor that a new console needs. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 is a beautiful looking game. Even today it wouldn't look out of place on, say, the Nintendo Switch. Factor 5's peerless on-rails flight sim, well, not really a flight sim, arcade flight game, took you to the best time in the Star Wars galaxy. You know, the one where the Emperor and Darth Burnt Bits were making an absolute nuisance of themselves, the blimmin' dickheads. A thrilling single-player mission with all the LucasArts bells and whistles is all you can ask for in a launch title. A great game, this. It's certainly better than the Wedge in your Antilles. Halo is good to be... Oh no, don't sing his songs. Much like the PS2 in 2000 and the GameCube in the entry before this, the Xbox was too high on titles but low in quality. Halo isn't just a great launch title though, but it is in fact a genre-defining classic, debuting an iconic series. How often did console owners meekly have to sort of half-heartedly wave GoldenEye at PC Master Race types when they throw their first-person willies upon the table? Halo solved the controller as inferior to the mouse and keyboard combo instantly, and also ushered in a new wave of online gaming on consoles that is still going as strong today as it was then. Halo is the year one of online gaming on consoles for me. The bright green armour of Master Chief has been the grown-up mascot for Microsoft's series of consoles ever since, and whilst he didn't run this particular console war very close, he's made it close ever since. He's that important, as is his tremendous franchise. Unlike the launches of the proper home consoles, the Pocket Super Nintendo had no issues during its launch lineup. Castlevania, Mario and F-Zero were all on hand to make the transition from grey beast to slick pocket powerhouse all the easier. Any of those games could have featured in my top 10, but really I felt that it should go to an original IP. Nintendo took on the dour turn-based strategy genre and, well, they Nintendoized it. They made it charming, approachable and addictive, yet it's also extremely challenging. Advance Wars 2. It's a game that's been long dormant, and if you've got a Nintendo Switch, they are re-releasing it at some point this year, and you should really come and see what the fuss is about if you've never played Advance Wars before. Advance Wars is a game that I still continue to play to this day, and I can heartily recommend it to you. If you've watched the 2000 iteration of this video, you would have seen that I was rather taken with Tricky's predecessor, SSX. SSX Tricky though, well, that's that game formula refined and ported across all the major next generation consoles. You've got more tracks, more moves, more modes and more characters, along with a rivalry system. Is it a true sequel? Probably not. It's EA, come on, you can't expect the FIFA guys to actually make a sequel from scratch, can you? It didn't need a huge overhaul though, and if you've got an Xbox or a GameCube, well, this is exactly what you need. If you already had the PlayStation 2's prequel, probably not Snow. Oh, did you see what I did there? Ico is an action-adventure that... No, it's more than just an action-adventure. An action-adventure to me sounds like a shaved-headed man running around hordes of soldiers with a big gun. This is much more than that. It's a work of creative vision. It's a title wrought with an emotional heart that most other games can only dream of, as Ico guides a captured girl called Yorda out of the perilous castle filled with shadow creatures. Ico paved the way for a lot of the emotional, artistic and thoughtful titles that we see today. You know, games like Ori and the Blind Forest, Limbo, Brothers Journey, Flower, all of them owe their existence to Team Ico's risky yet superb title. And Ico is still amongst the very best of these to this day. Of course this is in there. How can Grand Theft Auto 3, the game that inspired more wows than any other game in history, not be in a top 10? It seemingly came out of nowhere. No one expected this sequel to the 90s top-down titles to be this rich in detail, this in-depth, this inspired, to have this much scope. GTA 3's criminal sandbox presented the player with a toy box and just said, well, have at it. I've mentioned many times how influential games are, but few are as all-conquering as Rockstar's swaggering masterpiece. Should it be number one in this list? There's an argument for that, but I sense that GTA will be hovering around the number one spot quite a few times in the upcoming years, and well, it hasn't aged as well as some of the others. This year is pretty strong, so I'm happy to put it at number 4 for this year. Yes, Grand Theft Auto is below a posh spreadsheet. Sorry, Championship Manager may be a posh spreadsheet, but it's a magnificently addictive one. If you've any interest in soccer, just 2 or 3 matches in this game will see you hooked in to its micromanagement world. Every waking moment will consist of you wondering if you should alter your shape for that cup tie against top flight Everton, if you should replace your ageing striker with 2 Madeira. And you really should. And you'll be wondering if you're normal for giving a press conference to your toilet door. It has no right, this dour grid of numbers and exotic player names, to be as captivating as it is. And Championship Manager 01-02, for me, was the series at its peak. It's a very niche title, this, and maybe you won't be interested, but if you have any interest in football, it's well worth checking out. Oh, I know. Raiden, right? That was the dumbest trick Kojima could ever have played on us. You really got us, Hideo, and a lot of people hate your game as a result. Is MGS2, the full game of it, quite as strong as the potential that Snake starring demo that came with Zone of the Enders led us to believe? Well, no, not quite. Raiden isn't quite as strong a lead as his more athletic style of stealth somehow lessens the gameplay experience, and I can't quite put my finger on why. I can't be alone in this thinking either, as the variant of Snake would go back to being the main star for Metal Gears 3, 4 and 5, with Raiden shifting genres entirely in his own spin-off Revengeance. It seems like I've spent this entire entry, this number 2 in a list of incredibly strong games in an incredibly strong year, ragging on MGS2, and that's fair. However, even with the Raiden section of the game, which is 90% of it by the way, even that's an excellent adventure in its own right. It's chock full of details, secrets and Kojima quirks that have still elevated it to number 2 on this list, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Had the game been like the opening section on the ship, well, we'd be talking about not only number 1 in this list, but number 1 game of all time in my eyes. That demo was nothing short of extraordinary in 2001. A shame perhaps, but as far as booby prices go, Raiden's MGS2 ain't so bad at all and is worthy of number 2 in this list. I said boobies. Earlier when I was talking about Ico, I was talking about how it was a creative vision. Silent Hill is that too. Games like Ico and Silent Hill 2 saw the pastime of video games grow up. They could tell rich, subtext-full stories that could cut you deep and make you think for hours afterwards. Silent Hill 2 saw you trapped in a hellish town forged by the insecurities, flaws and fears of the tortured unfortunates who were drawn to wander its foggy locales. It's a game that doesn't pull its punches either. James Sunderland is a protagonist, while apparently a nice guy also has his own personal and literal demons. Some of the stories told by the other inhabitants, especially Angela, are horrific, and there are visual clues, sometimes subtle, sometimes not subtle at all, that graphically depict the absolute mess of these people's psyche. It's an unnerving, tense and grotty experience, a harrowing one from beginning to end. It leaves a mark on you, and some 20 years on, it's still a game I think about a lot. Yes, this year's GTA 3 gave you the freedom to sleep with prostitutes and then cave their skulls in to get your money back. Such was its open world, but Silent Hill 2 grabbed you by the shirt and asked you, spitting as it did, "Are you okay with that? Really? Is that who you are?" It's thought-provoking Lynchian nightmare stuff, and without doubt it is my favourite game of 2001 as a result. Woof. Well, that was jolly. Kind of fitting for the year of 9/11, eh? Let's just hope for more yucks in 2002. 2001 was a great year for games, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and Kate, thanks, bye.